Hey everybody, good afternoon. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. If you would, just shoot me a quick note. Let me know that you can hear me. Just say yes, we can hear you, or something like that, and we'll go ahead and get started. While I'm waiting on some messages to come in, you probably saw my note in there. All right, great, everybody. Mike, George, Dave, thank you very much for letting me know. Thomas, um, just want to let everybody know, if you haven't been to the office hours before, basically, um, all the questions that are submitted leading up to the office hours, I'm not really going to be looking at those. I'm only going to be looking at questions that are asked during the office hours. And that's just to make sure that your questions being answered, you're being able to see it, because the person that submitted the question 10 minutes before the office hours started, I don't know if they're still here or not. And I want to make sure that I'm answering questions for those people that are here and present and able to see it. The other thing is that after doing this for about almost 3 weeks now, we're in our third week of doing it. I'm finding that I'm answering a lot of the same questions every single day. So if that is the case, what I'm going to do is we're going to try and make that an office hour highlight. And then what we'll do is we'll take that segment. I'll probably answer that question today, and hopefully we'll get that into an office hour highlight. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of refer you to that video. That way I'm not spending a lot of the office hours answering the same questions every single day. I can just refer you to a video and you'll be able to watch it and get the whole answer there. And then if you have further questions, you can come back here and ask them at another time. The other thing is that a lot of the questions that are asked here, they're covered in pieces of on different parts of the website. We either have a video on it or a whole entire course on it. So if somebody is telling me I'm slicing my driver, what should I do? I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on why you're slicing or what you should do to slice. I'm just going to send you to the never slice again section, and then we're going to move on to the next question. So if it's questions like that, I'm probably going to it's not that I don't want to answer your question. It's just that there's a lot of questions that people have, and I want to make sure that I answer them, especially stuff that's not necessarily covered in great detail in other videos on the website. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'll scroll down to right when we got started. It's 3:02 right now. So I'll go with all the questions that were submitted no more than 2 minutes ago. So that starts here with Ed. Ed D asked, is tucking of the right elbow accomplished by moving the arm, or as a reaction to the shift rotation of the left femur to the target? I mean, you're going to have to. This is a question that I get a lot. Is it a conscious movement or is it an automatic thing? What you have to do is you have to film your swing. And if you're not doing it, if you're not doing the movement, then it's going to have to be a conscious thing. It's not going to become automatic. So I refer it to as, walking, right? Most people, they don't have to think about what they're doing when they're walk, because it's an unconscious thing. They know how to do it. It's in their psyche. They've done it a million times and they know how to do it. Whereas someone who's just learning how to walk, like a baby, for instance, they're going to have to think about what all goes into even getting on their feet to begin with. And then just taking that first step forward and the balance and everything of it. You're going to have to think about all of it. So anything that has to do that question, just to think about it in a broader sense. Do I consciously have to do this? Is it an active action to do this? If you look on camera and you're not doing it naturally, then you're going to have to think about it to do it. So Ed's question here is, do I have to move my right elbow? Is it just something that I automatically do if I get a proper weight shift and rotation? You can get a proper weight shift and then your right elbow can still go over the top. So if you're getting a proper weight shift and everything, now I will say that helps. So when people say, getting a proper sequencing and anything automatically shallows the club, I've actually heard a lot of instructors say that. It's not actually true. It's not an automatic thing. It does help because you're getting the physics and everything in your favor. The forces and everything are definitely in your favor, because when you're shifting to your lead side like this, the forces tend to want to go like that. And that's what helps to shallow. But you can still do this and still do that with your right hand. You're just kind of fighting against it because what you naturally want to do and what feels right. So if you're getting to your lead side, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to shallow the club and it's going to be in great shape. If you're still doing this, you may need to feel like, okay, I have to actually do this with my hands and my arms to make this happen. So there's some great. First of all, if you want to look to shallow out the club, the move is the section where you want to go. We also have tons of videos on the website that are, great add-ons to the move, basically supplements to the move section. So basically, if you search shallowing or shallow on the website, there's a great search engine on the website. In the upper right-hand corner, there will be a search box that says search this website. It's on about any web page on the website. Use that search shallow, and there'll be a ton of videos about shallowing. But if you want to go through the program itself, the move is where you're going to want to go. And you can find the move section. I think the easiest way is just to click the house icon, the home, the little thing that looks like a house at the top of the screen. If you click on that, that's going to take you to the home page. And if you scroll down, you're going to get there's 20 courses that we have on the website right now. If you scroll through there, you're going to see the move. It's, maybe a third of the way down on there. And that's going to be to help you to shallow out. Like I said, there's also plenty of other videos on shallowing out the club. I would definitely take a look at those and see if those help you get it to work a little bit better. So next question here, Dave S. Can you explain the difference between the long irons and wedges as to the amount of weight shift on the downswing? There's really no difference. I mean, if you're taking a full swing, you're going to be taking the same. The weight shift is really it's no different at all. The only thing I would say with wedges, depending on depending on if you're hitting kind of a pitch shot or not. So if I'm hitting more of a pitch shot, I tend to want to keep my weight. If you're taking a full swing wedge, it's going to be no different than the full swing long iron or driver. The weight shift, it's really the same. You're loading up completely on your trail side, and you're transferring that weight to your lead side if you're taking a full swing. But if you're hitting more like a finesse wedge shot where it's not a full swing shot, let's say it's a 50-yard shot or something like that. And in that case, I typically like to keep my weight forward as much as I can, because it's not a power shot. I'm not going for power. I'm going for distance control and everything. Now, naturally, there's going to be a little bit of a shift to your trail side as your hands and the club and everything are moving this way. Your center of mass is moving this way. But I typically try to keep that forward, and that ensures that you have a little bit more control, and then you're able to get that ball first contact. You're hitting a little bit more down on the ball, which helps you get a little bit more spin. So that'd be only the real difference there, is that you're mainly trying to keep that weight forward with the shorter wedge shots. But if you're going for a full swing shot, it's going to be the exact same. Good question, though. All right. Wayne V says, wondering if you could go over using ground in swing, especially when you should feel ground pressure and what part of the swing. So I can go over that for sure. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with something. It's called Swing Catalyst. But basically what Swing Catalyst is, it's a plate. It's a pressure plate. It's got all these thousands of pressure sensors in it. And you stand on it, and it measures the amount of pressure that you're putting into the ground. It's very, very cool. If you guys want to check it out, Google's Swing Catalyst. They kind of show you all this stuff. They actually have some free education. You can take the level 1 free education to kind of train you on all this stuff. But they tested the professional golfers, a ton of professional golfers, just to kind of see where the best players in the world, what kind of pressure they were putting into the ground. Now, do not confuse weight shift with pressure. When they're talking about pressure, all they're talking about is the force that you're putting into the ground with your feet. A weight shift, you're talking about your mass is moving around. That's a little bit different, because think about if you're taking a step, right? I'm shifting my weight this way, but my pressure is going this way. I don't have, if you're looking at you can't really see my feet, but right now I have my left foot up in the air and my right foot is on the ground. My mass is moving this way, so my weight is shifting this way, but my pressure is all in my trail foot. It's actually going that way because I'm pushing off. So when we say your weight shift is happening in the backswing, it actually is, because you're moving this way, but your pressure is building up. So at Address, what they found was most professionals were pretty much 50-50. Some had they found it was about 55-45, but mainly pretty balanced. and it was the lead foot had a little bit more pressure in it. And I believe that's because to get, they're pushing off a little bit to your trail side. So to start the swing, you have a little bit more pressure in that lead side so that you can get moving to your trail side. They found that a lot with professional golfers. But really, if you feel balance at address, that's really a good place to be. Again, 55, 45, that's pretty much dead on balance. It's not that much different than 50-50. So I don't want you to feel like you have about 80% of your weight on your lead side. You still just want to be pretty much 50-50. So they found that at the top of the swing, the pressure that they're putting into the ground was about 75-80% on their trail side, and then about 20-25% on their lead side. And then that switched around as they're coming into impact. So as you're going up to the top, that's building up and you're maxing out right here. And then as you're getting, as you're starting to your downswing, that's starting to shift to your lead side. And then the pressure is about 75-80% on your lead foot at impact. And then as you come all the way through into the full finish, with that, which I think most amateurs really struggle with this, because they hang back. They don't get a proper weight shift, and they're I would say most amateurs are probably in that 50-50 range, or maybe 65-60% of their pressure in their lead foot as they're coming into impact, because they're not getting a proper weight shift. They're hanging back as they're coming through. So and that results a lot in having a lot of weight on your trail foot as you're in the full follow through. Professionals, they're 90-95% of the pressure they're putting into the ground is on their lead foot. It's basically everything. Almost every bit of pressure that they're putting into the ground is in their lead foot. That basically means that their trail foot is literally just resting on the ground. They're up on their toes. So if you watch me here, if you look at my feet, they're coming through. I tweaked my back a little bit yesterday, so I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to show you guys today as far as swing stuff. But they're coming all the way through. I can't quite turn that much, but they're getting all the way up. So they're actually getting to where they're right here, and they can just tap their foot on the ground. That's how much pressure they have in their lead foot. So just to kind of give you an idea of the pressures that are going on throughout the swing. But mainly, if you tell someone, they automatically get in these positions, basically. If you tell someone to get fully loaded up in the backswing, and then you do the step drill, which is a video that's found in our vault section. It's actually in several videos, but one of the videos in the vault section, it's called How to Start the Downswing. You'll be able to do the step drill. And if you do the step drill, that really gives you an idea of when you should be shifting your pressure and getting to your lead side. So I'd be definitely checking out that video. Search downswing on the website. I think it's the third video down. It's got yellow lettering that says downswing in the thumbnail. Click on that video. There'll be a great video in there on how to do the step drill. And if you go through that and you make sure that you're getting to your lead side and getting everything moving to your lead side in the downswing, your weight shift's going to be happening on its own. That's what you want to have happen. So it'll help you really ingrain that really well. All right, so moving on here. Let me get a drink here real quick. All right, so Wayne posted his question again, so we'll skip that. John L. says, after completing the takeaway, how are we to get to the top of the backswing? Simply by continuing to rotate the shoulders like how we got to the takeaway, or by lifting the arms to get to the top. So takeaway is a combination. As you get to the club to the top, it's a combination of lifting and rotating. You're not just rotating to start the backswing. You're lifting and rotating. It's happening at the same time. It's simultaneous. And then as you continue to go up to the top, it's the same thing. So it's not like you just rotate to here and then you lift. And it's not like you lift and then you rotate. They're happening at the same time as you're going up. So it's the arms going up and it's the body rotating. So that's what it is. That's the motion right there. So I wouldn't try to think about the takeaway as several movements. I would just think about it as one movement where you're going up the top, you're lifting and taking away. That's what you're doing, just like that right there. Like I said, my back's a little stiff today, so not sure I'm going to be able to show you everything, but I'll do my best here for sure. All right, let's get to the next question here. Carl D says, I've been using the system and working on the move and stable fluid spine lately. I think I'm making good progress, but a new issue has crept into my swing. I'm having trouble making good contact with the ball. I have a heel and toe hit and lots of topped shots, especially with my hybrids and fairway woods. So it's a little hard to say what may be actually going on without seeing your swing. But when I hear people saying they're having trouble, so when you're making a swing change, your body just doesn't quite know how to move this way yet and hit the ball. So sometimes you have to just kind of get more comfortable with the movement, and then that's going to get better. But I don't know if that's what's going on here. It may be make sure that you're checking your swing on camera and that you're actually doing what you feel is a reality. And it could be you said you're working on the move and the stable and fluid spine. My best advice is just to work on one piece at a time. If you work on so many pieces at one time, you'll work on the move, and then you'll kind of lose what you're working on with your spine because you didn't take the time to ingrain that and get really comfortable with it. So when you work on the move, your spine is moving all over the place, and that could be causing the inconsistent strikes on the face. So if I were you, I would just work on one piece at a time, whatever you feel. If your spine's looking pretty good on camera, there's not a lot of movement, maybe just really, really focus on the move and getting comfortable with that. The more comfortable you get with it, the better your strikes are going to get. If you are topping shots, usually what I see with people who are topping shots is because the club is coming down. If we have the ball, hopefully y'all can see this, but if this is the turf, it's not riding very heavy for some reason. You can barely see that. But if we're looking here, if here's our ball, it's sitting on the turf. Your club is likely coming down and it's reaching its low point. So low point's right there. And then it's on the way up and it's striking the top of the golf ball. That's likely what's happening. So I would go to our stop chunking and topping section. There's going to be some great videos in there to work on that. But that's once you get comfortable with the move. If it doesn't start getting better, once you've gotten comfortable with the move and you're doing it and you're doing the move really, really well, then I would be going to the topping and chunking section. But like I said, I would be working on one piece at a time. If you skip around and go from piece to piece and don't ingrain one piece at a time, then what's going to happen is you're just going to run around in circles and you're going to have trouble. I think that might be what's going on here. But like I said, it's hard to tell without seeing your swing and working with you one-on-one. That being said, I believe I'm actually out of spots right now. But if you'd like to work with me with the Unlimited Swing Reviews, I can give you some more personalized feedback on exactly what may be going on with you. I do have a waiting list. You can join my waiting list, and as soon as I get spots to open up, we can send out an email, and hopefully you'll be able to join at that time. But yeah, go ahead and check out our Unlimited Swing Reviews. There's other instructors too, not just myself. I believe Tommy's got spots open, and Robin does as well. But I think I'm all full at the moment. Last I looked, so check out the Unlimited Swing Reviews if you're wanting more personalized feedback on your swing for sure. All right, Jamie. So I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. It might be Jaime. I'm not really sure. So Jaime or Jamie, I'm not sure. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Says I hit 2,285 balls already on level 2, 2.4. I noticed that I hit the ball straight, but no distance. So I'm not sure which 2.4 that could be any one of the sections. But I will say, if you're struggling with distance, that's most likely to do with club head speed. So I'd be trying to work on your club head speed a little bit. So that'd be, I'm not sure if you're in the power turn, but I'd be looking at your shoulder turn. That's the number one thing I see for people who are really struggling with distance. The number one thing I see is a lack of a shoulder turn. Their shoulder turn is about like that. They're not just turning their shoulders enough. A lot of times I see they're keeping their hips pretty much completely still, or very, very little turn of the hips, and they're only turning their shoulders this much, and they just kind of lift the arms and then throw the arms at the ball. That's what I see most common with people who are really, really struggling with distance. So I would make sure, look at your shoulder turn, make sure your shoulder turn is good. It might be good just to sprinkle in, you know, once you get comfortable with whatever piece that you're working on, and you're feeling pretty good about it, then I would go to the power turn section and start working on that and improving your distance. All right, so Thomas C says, I sometimes have a problem getting my iron squared up at impact. It has the same result as a shank, but I can tell that the face is open because my right wrist is pointed about 25 degrees to the right. So sounds like you're not sure if it's a shank, but it could be. But if it's not a shank, then you're just leaving the face open at impact. So the ball is always going to start mostly in the direction of the club face. So if the face is open, if you're right-handed, it's going to go to the right. If it's closed, it's going to go to the left. If it's squared up, it's going to start out straight. So the ball is always going to start in the direction that the club face is pointing. So if you're hitting the ball off to the right, that means you're leaving the face open. So what I would try to do is I would, as far as just thinking about impact, I would try to just roll over the wrist harder and try to get that club face to close down more. I'd actually try to get that ball to start to the left, as much as you can. As far as technique is concerned, what I'd be looking at is 1.2 from the move. Video 1.2, I think it's called Compress the Heck Out of the Ball or something like that. And what you want to do is you want to get that club face squaring up earlier by closing down that face a little bit. So if you look at, I got this face like this, what I would try to feel like, if you look at my left wrist, if I have it matched up with the face right here, you see I'm trying to close that face down. So that's what I'd be trying to feel like as you're coming down, is I'm closing that face down as I'm coming into impact. There's a great drill on the website. So that's 1.2 from the move. There's also a great video. It's very, very similar drill. If you search face rotation, that one's done with the driver, but it's basically the same drill. It's the same thing, whether you're hitting driver or iron or wedge or whatever it might be. You're still wanting to square up that face by turning that handle down. So I'd be taking a look at that, working through that drill to get that club face to square up a little bit better at impact. All right. Mark K here says, can you have too much spine angle and knee bend where your body feels like it has to come up on impact? Reason for the question is because while I was away on a golf trip, my tee ball was either great or topped, more topped than great. My second shots, however, were consistently very good across the board, whether hitting irons, fairway woods, rescues. Guess I had bad lies on tee box. So, Mark, yeah, you can have too much spine angle. I'm not sure exactly if you mean from face on or from down the line, up and down. But essentially, if you're talking about from face on, so spine angle, meaning being too far tilted away or too far tilted forward. Typically, across the board, it's pretty good to be 6 to 8 degrees tilted away, no matter what club you're hitting. That's basically a good general rule. But with a driver, you can be a little bit more tilted away. I don't mind seeing people in the 8 to 10 degrees tilted away range. And the reason is that with a driver, you can hit more up on the ball. It's up on a tee, right? So the club can come down, bottom out, and then be on the way up to the ball. And that's actually better for distance to hit up on the ball because you're going to be able to reduce the spin and higher the launch if you're able to hit up on it. So I actually recommend that. But yeah, you can be way too much. You can be like 15 degrees tilted away. And when you do that, what's typically going to happen is a lot of times you'll swing too much from the inside. The club will actually bottom out too soon. And this may be what was happening to you. If you were set up too much tilted away, you mentioned that you were topping a lot of these shots. Well, it's like what I was talking about before. If this ball is up on a tee, so instead of it being on the ground, now we can put it up on a tee. So if we have our turf, sorry, it's not really showing up very good, but if we have our ball here and we have, let's say this is the tee, pardon my terrible drawing of the tee, but we have this ball up on a tee, right? Well, if your club comes down and bottoms up and then it's on the way up and it hits the top of the ball, that's might be what's happening. So the club's bottoming out back here. and then it's on its way up too much as it gets to the ball. So what we want to do is we want to get that club to bottom out a little bit more ahead and then be on its way to the ball, so we hit the underside of the ball and we can get that high launch and low spin. So that could be what's happening there. As far as too much knee bend is, I mean, really, you don't want to be bending so far down that you're getting kind of a burn. You know what I mean? It's just like you just want to get in more of an athletic position. So it's almost like if I were to be running at you right now, what kind of position would you get in? Like if I was going to be running at you like I was going to run you over, you'd probably just go like this, right? You just get a little bit lower and get on the balls of your feet. You're not going to squat way down. You're going to just kind of get a little bit lower. So that's all you really need to do in the golf swing is just get a little bit lower. You don't want to bend way down. And then as far as bending over too much, yeah, with a driver, you can actually stand a little bit more upright because it's a longer club. And that's completely fine. So I just test out and find what works best for you. Try some swings that are where you're a little bit more upright. Try some swings. Go to the extreme. Go to where you feel like you're standing completely straight up and hit some balls, and do some where you're really bent down and hit some shots. Go to both ends of the spectrum and see what works best for you, and work everything in between. So maybe you start out really bent over and you hit some shots, and then you stand up a little bit more, hit some shots. Hit a few balls from every incremental position until you're basically at the other end of the spectrum where you're standing basically straight up and hitting some shots. And find what works best for you. What gives you the best ball flight, the best results, and what's the most comfortable for you. And I would take that on for sure. There's some people that stand a little bit closer, some people that stand a little bit further away. It's not a universal truth fundamental of the golf swing. There's no one distance to stand away from the golf ball for everybody. It varies. It's different. So you just got to find what works best for you and work that out on the range and take it out to the course. All right. So Ed D says, okay, so that's a repeat. You asked someone earlier and I answered it already. Douglas A says, in the downswing, are the arms totally passive or do you try to apply speed with the arms? This goes back to the first question that I answered. It's totally personal. Everyone's a little bit different. I will say that most amateurs don't use their lower body enough. So you probably need to feel like your arms are more passive and try to get your legs more involved in the swing. If you look on camera and you see your legs aren't doing anything and your arms are just flying in front of your body, you probably need to feel pretty passive with your arms, because in reality, what's likely going to happen when you feel passive is you're going to get your lower body more involved and you're going to swing better. So I would take a look at your swing on camera. The camera doesn't lie. You got to look at your swing on camera and see what's going on there. And then you have to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. So if you look on camera, you see your arms, or you're just swinging all arms basically. At that point, you probably need to get your lower body more involved. The best drill for that is the step drill. Go search downswing on the website, third video down, yellow lettering, downswing. Take a look at that video, and that's the one you're going to want to use, the step drill, to get the lower body more involved. All right, so Edward C says, I tend to spray my shots, misses left and right. What's the best way to practice getting more consistent miss? That's going to be the ball striking masterclass. If you're looking to improve your impact, you're not really sure. So as far as what's available to you on the website right now, working on your technique, your stable fluid spine is going to be the number one thing. So making sure that your spine is nice and stable. So again, 6 to 8 degrees at address, 6 to 8 degrees at the top, increasing and rotating as we're going into impact and coming all the way through into a full finish. If you're set up vertical at the top or at the beginning at address, and then you go to the top and you're like this, and then you have to go like this in the downswing, you're going to have a really hard time being consistent. So I would check your spine angle first, make sure that you're very stable throughout the swing. That'd be the first thing I would check as far as stuff's available to you on the website. But as far as working on being able to control that and increasing your awareness of impact, the ball striking masterclass is going to be the next best thing for you. That's going to help you understand exactly what gives you a solid golf shot. And there's really 4 big things that go into that. And we talk about that in the Ball Striking Masterclass. We'll be offering enrollment on that probably in the next month. So be on the lookout in your email for that. We only offer enrollment every month or 2. So if you think the time is right for you, I'd definitely jump on that. It's great. I actually recommend it for anybody who's looking to improve. No matter where you are in the system, take a little break and start working on the Ball Striking Masterclass once we get that out to you, because it's really going to help you to understand. And if you combine that with with what you learn in the Ball Striking Masterclass and combine that with the Top Speed Golf system, that's really just going to take your game to the next level. So I definitely check out that. At the very least, it's a great learning experience for you. So Bob B, moving on to the next one, says, recently Clay did instruction videos for the fade and draw. Common to both. Set the club face direction angle and your swing direction angle. When do you take your grip on your club after you set the club face and swing the angle, or at what step? So basically, if you're setting up the face, basically if you're setting up the face a little bit open, that's when it's going to turn in your grip a little bit. So if you're trying to fade the ball, for example, if you're setting the face up to the direction that you want the ball to start, if you're setting that face up, that face is going to be a little bit open. So it's going to, and if this is your grip to get a normal, I'm going to exaggerate this, but if this is, I would call this a neutral grip going right down the shaft here, your thumb going right down the shaft. If that's a square club face there, that's my normal grip. If I'm going to have a swing that's open to the path, what I would do is I would have the grip a little bit open. Now this is an exaggeration, but I would just maybe have just a little bit weaker grip. So when I put that club face down, it's just a little bit open, but it's a very, very small adjustment. And then from there, it's just swinging to your path. So what I do is I would set the face up, the direction you want the ball to start, then set your stance up. And at that point, you're taking your grip. So let me angle this down so you can see my hands and everything. So let's say this is the target line. All right. And I want this ball to start a little bit. I'm hitting a fade here, and I want this ball to start a little bit to the left and fade back to the right. So what I do is I would set up my face a little bit to the left, right? So here I'm setting up my face a little bit to the left, and then I'm going to take my stance even more to the left because I'm wanting to swing left and then have the ball curve back to the right. And then from there, I would take my stance from there. So now my face is open to my stance, but it's actually closed to the target line because I want the ball to start to the left and curve back to the right. And then I would just swing down my toe line here to get that ball to start in the right direction. So that's how I hit a fade. Some people do it a little bit differently, but I think that's the easiest way. Set up the ball or set up the face in the direction you want the ball to start, and then set up your feet twice that much. So if I'm wanting the ball to start 5 yards to the left, I would set up my face 5 yards to the left. And if I wanted to curve back to the target, I would need to set up my feet 10 yards to the left. So double that. And that makes the ball start 5 yards to the left and then curve back to the right. As long as I'm swinging, as long as I'm returning everything back to where I was at impact. And that just takes practice. If you're wanting to learn to control that sort of thing, again, Ball Striking Masterclass, that's where we teach you how to improve your awareness and get better control of it. So I'd be definitely checking out that when we release that out. Another chance to enroll. All right, so Carl D says, I've been using the system and working on the move and stuff. Okay, so that's a repeat question. All right, Thomas C, again, that's a repeat question. So as long as you posted your question before, or after I got started after 3 o'clock, I'm going to answer. So you don't need to keep reposting it. I'll answer it in order as I go through here. Mike L says, can you elaborate on the raising of the club handle at impact, which causes greater whipping action? Sure. So if you're thinking about how my arm, it's coming off of this right here. It's rotating off of this pivot point, which is my shoulder. So if you look right here, my hand's going down, it reaches its lowest point, right? And then it's starting to move up again. So that's what's happening in the golf swing is you're going down, it gets to its lowest point. Let me angle this down a little bit so you can see. If I'm coming down in the downswing, it reaches its lowest point about right here. So as you can see, it's about straight down from my lead arm. And then what's happening is I'm pushing into the ground with my lead leg, and that's going to straighten out my leg, and that's going to lift my hip, which is going to lift my shoulder, and that's going to bring the club up and whip through impact. So that's exactly what we talk about in the compression line section. There's a video in there. I can't remember the number of the video, but it's the whip the club like a clothes hanger. That's exactly what's going on here. You're getting these hands really, really low, and then you're pushing up into the ground, and that's what's whipping the club through there. So if you think about, if I were to take this club and just go laterally side by side, you can see it really doesn't go very fast. But if I do this, I go this way, and then I dip down and then pull up. Now look how much faster it goes. It goes down and up. That speeds it up. So that's exactly what's going on when you get the hands really, really low. You pull it up and it speeds it up. And that comes from using the ground, rotating the body open, pushing this hip back and up, pushing the shoulder up. That gets the hands moving up as you're coming through there. Go look at Rory McIlroy's swing. He's probably one of the best I've seen on camera doing this. He gets his hands really, really low, and then you'll really, really see how he really whips that club up, especially with the driver. So I go to YouTube, search Rory McIlroy face on driver swing, and you'll really watch it in slow motion and watch how he really pulls that handle up by pushing into the ground. Good question there. Let me actually write that down. All right. So at 3:36 minutes in, we had a good question about pulling the handle up. So we'll take. Well, that might be a good highlight for people to look at. Malik K says, how straight should the left arm be or stay during the backswing and downswing? Is there any latitude or loss of power if it's bent at all? So there's actually some argument out there that there's power gained from bending it because it adds another level. There's a video that Clay did where he tested his swing where he bent his arm a little bit. He didn't bend his arm like a ton, not like that, but he had probably 30 degrees of bend in his arm. And then he did some swings where he had no bend in his arm. So what I've found for the most part is that it makes virtually no difference in your speed, but that doesn't mean that it won't make a difference for you. You personally might swing a little bit better because you're more comfortable with one over the other. So the advantage of keeping that left arm straight is, one, it's arguable that it's more consistent. But I found in the downswing, most people straighten out that left arm anyway. But that's not even a must either, because we see a lot of people who aren't straightening out that lead arm. You look at Robin's swing; he doesn't straighten out that lead arm. His swing, his lead arm is somewhat bent. Lee Westwood, another guy, Jordan Spieth, Jordan Sedlowski. I mean, he's a long drive guy. Doesn't bend his lead arm. Is not bent at impact, so that's not even a must, I would say. But I will say that the other school of thought is that arm is longer, you're creating a longer arc, right? But if I bend my arm, I'm creating, or that creates a wider arc. And if I bend it, it creates a longer arc. And then I also get this other level. The only other lever, the only thing I don't like about bending the arms too much is that I find a lot of people who bend the arms too much tend to throw the club away. That's typically what happens. I find that most people who have a little bit of bend in their arm or keep that lead arm straight, they have a little better time generating lag in the downswing, which is very, very important for speed. So really, you just have to find what works best for you. Some people will do a little bit better. Like, for example, Rory McIlroy, if he worked on bending it, he keeps his arm dead locked straight. If he worked on trying to bend it a little bit and getting that lever, I would imagine it really wouldn't make that much of a difference for him because he's already comfortable with the other way. Whereas if you worked with someone like Lee Westwood and trying to get him to keep it dead straight, again, I think it would just be a waste of time for him. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference for him. But I would try it. Try either one. Try it. It's like what I was talking about earlier with the stances. Find the right distance away from the ball that works best for you. I can tell you kind of the norm where it is, but I wouldn't call that a universal truth. That's not something that you have to do. And it's the same thing with the lead arm. It's not a universal truth. You can have it really, really bent. As long as you're hitting the 5 pieces of the Top Speed Golf system, you're generating lag, and you're able to get more speed from that. Who am I to tell you that that's the wrong way to do it? So you may as well try to get a little bit extra speed from it, as long as you're generating lag and not throwing the club away. That's the only time I'd tell you. Maybe try keeping it a little straighter, so that way you have an easier time generating lag. So I would try them. Go to where you're extreme bent, where you have it maybe 90-degree bend at the top. The only thing I would say with that is just make sure that you're getting a full shoulder turn. Make sure you're not just doing this. You want to make sure that you're getting a big full shoulder turn, and then you're getting that bend at the top. Because that's the other thing that I see. People who bend their arm at the top, they're doing it to try and get a longer swing, and they're just not turning their shoulders enough. And really, they'd probably be a little bit better off if they just turn their shoulders a little bit more. So again, that's another great question, but I would go to both ends of the spectrum. Go to the range, try out really, really bent arm, and then incrementally do a little less bend until you're basically at a deadlock straight bend. Take a couple swings with each increment and see what works best for you. Take your swing speed radar or swing caddy 2 out there and see what kind of speeds you're getting, see what kind of contact you're getting, see what works best for you. And then whatever that is, I just stick with that, because that's going to be the best thing that works for you. Good question, though. Thank you. Corey V says, let me get a drink here. Again, I don't know why it censors balls, but it does. Corey says, I'm hitting the balls with my driver very high on the club face. What can I do so I hit something balls in the center of the club face? So a lot of what golf is adjusting your field to get the desired result that you want. So I would be trying to hit the ball on the bottom part of the club face intentionally. And what that will likely do is that will most likely get the strike higher, or get the strike more in the center of the club face. One thing to keep in mind here is a little bit higher on the club face is actually good. So club faces, the driver club faces, you're not really going to be able to see it on here because it's fairly subtle. But driver club faces are domed, and it's done this way for gearing, so that to reduce the gearing effect. So they're domed this way, and they're also domed across the face. So what that does is if you hit the ball higher on the face, it actually reduces the spin and then higher the launch. But obviously, we don't want to hit it way, way up here. Really, about a 1/4 inch higher on the face is pretty darn good. So if that's my dead center of the club face right there, hitting it a little bit higher on the face, so a 1/4 inch higher on the face, and it really depends on the CG of your driver, but in general, about a 1/4 inch higher on the face. That's going to help you to reduce the spin, which is going to help you to get more rollout, and in most cases, get more distance. And it's also going to launch the ball a little bit higher. So the loft that you see, so this is a 9-degree driver I got here. That 9 degrees is measured from the dead center of the club face. If I go higher on the club face, that can be about 12 degrees right there. Typically, it's about 3-degree difference between the top and the middle, 6 degrees all the way from the bottom of the top. So if you ever notice, if you hit a ball on the low part of the face, it will start out much, much lower, and it will also tend to balloon on you. It'll tend to start out low and then kind of rise up like that. That's because if you hit a ball lower on the face, it will actually add more spin than you typically would have. So if you're hitting the ball just a little bit higher on the face, then that's good. I would actually stick with that. But if you're hitting the ball way up here toward the crown, then that's too high on the face. That's adding too much loft. You're likely not getting a very efficient strike from that. But if you just go a 1/4 inch higher on the face, you're still going to get a very efficient strike, and you're also going to get the benefits of a little bit of a higher launch and a little bit lower spin, which is better for distance. So I wouldn't be too concerned with getting it way, way perfectly in the center. If it's a little bit high on the face, that's actually much, much better. So I would go out there, try to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. I would try to strike the ball on the lower part of the face. Line up as you normally would, and then intentionally try to hit the ball on the lower part of the face. If you still hit it on the higher part of the face, exaggerate it even more. Actually, you may even want to feel like you're coming in and hitting over the top of the ball to really, really exaggerate it. And if you actually hit the ball lower on the face, like too low on the face, then just ease off of your feeling a little bit. So I would go out there, get her a better awareness of your face, and that's going to improve your strikes by quite a bit. These are the kinds of things that we do in the ball striking masterclass. So I definitely check that out too. But again, great question again there. Got some great questions today, guys. Good job. A lot of times I get the same questions kind of over and over. So you guys are doing awesome today. Dan K says, I have a closed stance when the club is parallel. Should it be down the target line or my toe line? So I'm not sure at what point in the swing you're talking about. But it really, the most important thing is what's going on at impact. So the only thing I would say is, if I'm not sure at what point in the swing you're talking about when the club's parallel, but we'll go over all of them here. So in the backswing, I mean, ideally the club would be pretty parallel to the target line. That would mean you're bringing the club up on plane, but it's okay if it's a little outside, and it's okay if it's a little inside. The only reason I would say you would want it to be on plane and not inside is that when you bring the club too much inside, so I'm not parallel with my target line now, when I do that, my momentum is moving this way. I'm going to tend to want to come over the top sometimes. Now it goes the opposite way. If I'm going too far outside the hands, now my momentum is going this way in the downswing, and I may swing too much from the inside. So I would only change it if you're bringing the club way inside and you're coming over the top. Then I would maybe try to feel like you're bringing the club more outside of your hands to compensate for that. And then at the top of the swing, again, down the target line, that means that the club head's on plane. Move this way so that I don't hit my glass board here. But basically, down the target line, that's ideal. But you know what? If you're a little bit laid off, that could cause you to swing too much under plane. But if you're still swinging down on plane when you're laid off, then that's completely fine. John Ram, he's got that club laid off at the top, hits the ball very, very well. Just to go back, a great example of someone who brings the club way inside and hits the ball really, really well, J.B. Holmes. I mean, look at his swing from down the line. He's got that club way over here. I mean, it's way, way inside. So, and then some people that bring the club more outside, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, they bring the club more outside the hands as they go up to the top. But like I said, it's all about what's going on at impact. So whatever you change going up to the top and coming down into the ball, it has to change what's happening at impact. It has to improve this. If you're just changing this because you think it's supposed to be a certain way, or maybe aesthetic reasons or anything like that. I mean, J.B. Holmes doesn't have the prettiest swing in the world, but man, he gets that ball out there and he's got a pretty plush bank account because of it. So I wouldn't worry about where the club's coming in unless it's making a difference at your impact. So if the club is across the line, a lot of times when you pull down on the club, if I'm across the line at the top, that's going to make the club drop too much to the inside. I'm going to get some blocks, maybe even some hooks to the left if you're right-handed. As far as in the downswing, this is probably where it's most important. So what we would like to have, because this is the closest to impact, this is the closest point to impact. So if I'm at impact here, if my club is down the target line, that pretty much means that I'm right on plane. And that'd be a good place to be, to get that club to be working down on plane. If I'm coming down and that now my club is pointing left of my target, if I'm right-handed, that's going to be an over-the-top swing, and I'm going to be cutting across the ball. And then if I'm coming down and the club's too far inside, I'm going in to out. Ideally, we would have this club just inside the hands as we're coming down. So it's a little bit off plane. And what that allows you to do, this is a whole nother discussion, but basically as you're coming down, that club's going to kick through impact a little bit because it's going to want to return to that ball. So your club's coming down on what we call a line of action. I might actually just tell you to go to a video here to check that out. But I won't go into great detail, but basically that club is going to want to return to that line of action, and it's going to give it a little kick, a little boost as it comes through impact. If you want to learn more about that, search off plane, 2 words, off plane on the website. There's a video that Clay did that really explains that in great detail, why it's important to be a little bit off plane and how it can help you. So search off plane would be a great video to check out. So I would take a look at that. I think that'd be really good for you. So hopefully that I covered all the bases there. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there, but I hope that helped. Let me get a drink there. So I talked for a little bit there. All right, so Paul D says, I have trouble getting stuck where I swing very inside out and trap the ball to hook it. My shoulders are closed at impact and my hips may be square. Is there a drill to open up so I can get the hips shoulder open at impact? Yes. So there's actually a great drill. I believe it's for hip and shoulder alignment. But basically the way the drill goes, I think it's in the compression line section, but it might be in the power turn section. I can't remember exactly. But do a search and just search hip, shoulder, and there'll be a drill in there for hip and shoulder alignment. But basically with this drill, you don't want you're kind of opposite there. It looks like you're kind of like this as you're coming into impact. And what you want to have happen is you want the hips to be open and the shoulders square to a little bit open. So as you're coming into impact, if you're too closed off with the shoulders, it sounds like this is what's happening to you, is you're getting that club to work too much from the inside, and you're getting those blocks and the trap hooks that you're talking about. So ideally, you'd have those shoulders coming down or more square, pointing more down the target line at impact. And that's going to be a more square path for the club to come through. And if you're way too open, then you can be cutting across the ball. But what you see with most professionals, the average is hips about 45 degrees open at impact, and then you see the shoulders about 10 to 12 degrees open, somewhere in there. So open to the target line is what I mean. But square to slightly open is good with the shoulders. 45 degrees, 40, 50 degrees, somewhere in there is a pretty good place to be with the hips. You can be a little bit more. I mean, look at Dustin Johnson. His hips are probably 60, 70 degrees open, something crazy. Most people aren't going to be capable of doing that. But if you can get a little bit more open, that's only going to help you to get more momentum in the downswing. If you're that flexible, I know I'm not, especially right now. Yeah, if you can get everything working in sync and get your body that open, then that's even better. Robert M says, how do you set your feet on the tee box? I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. If he means how I set up my feet when I'm hitting a shot. So basically what I like to do, and everyone's got their own idea for this. So if I'm hitting a driver, right? So that's the one we're off the tee box and the most. I'll actually angle this down a little bit more so you can see the ball. Yep. Okay. So what I like to do is I kind of like to set up with my feet together and in the middle of my stance, so about 6 inches apart. And then from there, I like to just set my back foot back. And that kind of puts the ball in a perfect position for me, which for me, I like the ball to be straight down from the lead shoulder with the driver. And the reason why I say that is everyone's got varying stance widths. So if you are, you've probably heard you want the ball on the inside of your foot, which for most people is really probably a pretty good place because that does put it straight down from the lead ear. That's probably your standard stance width. But let's say you have a wide stance, like you have a Rory McIlroy driver stance. You're like this. Well, if you play that ball on the inside of your foot, that ball's way, way up there. That's too far in front. That's way out in front of my shoulder. You're going to probably end up hitting some top shots and things like that. So, and if you have a really narrow stance, let's say you have a Tony Finau driver stance, and you have that ball on the inside of your foot, that might be a little too far back, and you're not getting up on the ball. So you may want to put it more up in your stance where it's straight down from your lead shoulder. It's going to be in that perfect spot for you. So that's where I would do it. So for me, I found if you set up to the ball enough times, you'll have a good idea of where it should be. But like I said, I like to set up with my feet together here. And I know that for my shoulder to be, when I get into my full stance here, for my shoulder to be in the right spot in alignment with the ball, my feet are about 6 inches apart. I line up with the ball pretty much right in the middle of my stance, and then I drop the back foot back. and then I line up to it. That's just what I do. There's no wrong way to do it. I mean, you find whatever way puts you in the right position. That's going to be the right thing for you. That's just what I do. And it seems to work okay for me. All right. So JT says, I'm good for now. Great. Carl D says, thanks. No problem. Glad I could help. Maritz G says, what is the most likely the fault when the irons go about the same distance? 7 to 5 iron. That's a good question. What I find with a lot of people when they get in the upper irons is they just don't have enough club head speed to hit irons, the upper irons. So they're probably better off getting hybrids. And with the upper irons, those will have a lower CG and help the ball get up in the air a little bit more. Because what's likely happening is you're hitting them about the same distance, but they're at varying lofts. So you'll hit one that has a good launch on it, but doesn't have enough speed on it to hit far. And then you'll have your 5 iron where you get good speed on it, but there's too little loft on it. It's not getting in the air enough, and you're not getting it to launch down there enough. So if you take that 5 iron and take that same speed and get it in a hybrid and lower that CG so you can get that launch to get it to launch a little bit higher, then that can help you get a little bit more distance with it. So I would look at that. Other than that, it'd be really, really hard to say without seeing your swing. But I would go see like a great club fitter. I recommend Club Champion. I think they're great club fitters. I've been in there a couple times. See if some hybrids can help you, or just go to any Dick's Sporting Goods or PGA Superstore. See if you can hit some hybrids, some 5, 4 hybrids, 6 hybrids, and see if you hit them further than your normal 5 and 6 iron, and see what the kind of difference you get in it. Usually they're even easier to hit out of rough and stuff like that. So I definitely check that out. But that's usually what I see whenever I see people struggling with the upper irons when they hit them about the same. All right, let me get a drink here again. So Thomas F says, my golf swing hurts the middle knuckle of my left finger, and I don't have a tight grip. Any ideas to prevent this? That's a good question. I honestly don't have any idea. Are you married? Are you have a ring on there? I've never had any issues. I always wear my ring when I play, but I've had friends that take their ring off because it hurts when they play. But I have kind of a slender ring. Some people have kind of more bulky, heavier rings, and that could be why it hurts. But I maybe check that out. Maybe that's what's causing it. Other than that, honestly, I got no clue, buddy. I wish I could help you, but I don't know. You stumped me on that one. So yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if you wear a ring or not, but if you do, maybe take that off and see if that helps. So we got a few more minutes here. I'll see if I can answer a few more. Sam M says, I believe that I shallow the club at the start of the downswing, but I have a tendency to rotate the left arm too early, resulting in the shaft returning to vertical position and causing pull. Appreciate your comment and advice. And it looks like he has subsequent, or no, that's Scott M. I thought it was the same person. So when he says, I believe that I shallow the club, that leads me to believe that you don't know, which means you're not filming your swing. You got to make sure that you're filming your swing on camera. You can't just guess what's going on. Feel is often not real, especially when you're trying to make changes in the golf swing, because you may feel like you're shallowing the club like crazy, but most of the time you're just making a very, very small difference, and you're not really shallowing out the club. So the way that I like to look at it to make sure that you're shallowing out the club is, number one, get your camera angle right. So the camera angle needs to be going just in front of your toe line. So the easiest way to do that is to, if I grab a club here and I put it on the ground, I'll try to line it up with the camera here the best I can. So I think I've got it lined up with the camera here pretty good. So that should be straight above the hands. So if I put up the alignment stick and have the camera shooting right down that alignment stick, my hands should be right above that, just like that. See how my hands are just above that? So if I were to drop something from my hands, it would land right on that stick. So that's the camera angle that we want. And then as you're going up, it should be about waist level. And this is too close. I just don't have enough room to show you, but it should be far away enough that you're able to get the whole swing, the club never leaves the frame. You can always zoom in on the swing. You can't zoom out enough to get what you need. So make sure that you're far away enough that the club never leaves the frame. Once you do it several times, it's going to become second nature. You know how to do it. But basically, what you're going to look for is as you're coming down in the downswing, you're going to pause it when this lead arm gets parallel to the ground. I want you to look where this butt end of the club is pointing. So if that butt end of the club is right here, you are not shallowing out the club. You are coming down steep if it's inside of the golf ball. If it's at the golf ball or outside of the golf ball, you're in a pretty good shallow position. But you could be in this position and then going like that, like you're saying. But I would first make sure that you're nice and shallowed out. If you are in this position, if you are shallowed out and then you're doing this, what that usually means is you're not opening up the body. You're basically stalling out the hips and then having the arms just race in front of the body. So make sure that you're continuing to open up as you're coming in there. So I'd look at the move. Make sure you're going into the move section and checking that out and making sure you're doing the drills. Doing the drills correctly in there and reviewing that, because that's what's really going to help you to get to what you need. Because what's happening here is your club path. If you're pulling the ball, that means your club path is moving to the left. So you need to be getting that club to work more into out. So I would try to hit some balls that start to the right and actually hook for you. So that way you're getting that ball to work a little bit better for you. So thanks everybody for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. If you have any questions, be sure to join me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be back here again, and I will talk to you then. Thanks, everybody.